Welcome, beautiful queens, to the very first episode of Simply Lili. I'm your host, Lili. This is an open invitation for you to ride with me this new journey where we can talk about heartbreak, motherhood, loss, faith, rebuilding ourselves, beauty, and becoming. But most of all, this thing called life. So if you're listening today, I want you to know this. When I thought about putting this podcast together, I was like, what is it that I know in my heart that I have a calling. I know that all these things that have happened in my life and I have overcome, I know that there's a purpose in some of the things that I have gone through. One time I was talking to my cousin Tina, and she's actually a pastor. And there's a point in my life where I was doing everything right, but everything was coming out wrong. And I remember saying to her, I said, girl, let me tell you something. What is it? What is it that I need to do for all this crazy things happening in my life stop happening? Or what is it that I'm doing wrong? And when I say that, I was like, I said, it's either marriages that are messed up, or it's like something happening with loss, or it's, kids like just going in a different direction. But she said to me, listen to me, girls. I'm going to tell you something. You need to find your purpose. And when you find your purpose, you are going to know what to do with it. And when you find your purpose, you're going to see change. And ever since she said that to me, I'm not going to lie. I've been trying to figure out what my purpose is. But one thing that I have learned is if you're not honest about yourself, or you're not coming clean about yourself and things that you need to literally clear up within yourself, you're not going to have the opportunity for the door to open for new things to be coming in, for good things to be coming in, things that we often call blessings. So when I put this together, I said, you know what? I have a story to tell. And I have known, and I've never taken the time to listen. And I never taken the time to say, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? Lord, why is it that these things that keep going on in my life, that I'm doing the right thing? And I remember this little voice, saying, hope. But hope what? And I tried to figure it out, and I'm not going to lie. I was just like, okay, I'm going to see where this goes. But what ended up taking me to a different level is when I returned to church and I started affiliating with different women my age. And just hearing them and what is going on in their life, I was like, you know what? I'm not alone in this. I started looking and seeing, when you go to different things like in church, you don't talk about everything, but that was when I got that ding, and I got that light bulb, and I said, I need to start my own space. That's what I need to do. I need to start my own space. And that's when I said, you know what? When I know that I can do this, then I'm going to do it. That was the crazy thought. But then I kept having it in my mind about this purpose. And, then finally I said, hold on. What the hell am I thinking? Oh, when I feel, no, I'm going to do this. This is what I've been wanting to do. And I am not going to let the enemy come in and try to change my mind otherwise. So then I finally said, you know what? Let me start researching things about podcasts, how to do them, what do I need, and I will figure it out. I will figure it out, but most of all, I am going to pray on it. And that's exactly what I did. So if you're listening now, I want you to know that when I thought of all this and I put this all together, I decided to create a space that is going to be gentle, that is going to be honest, and it's going to be a space for women who are growing, healing, evolving, and still figuring life out. Because we don't have all the answers. We don't have a guide that tells us how to take it from one milestone in our life to the other. These are just things that we have to figure out as we go along. So these things are happening in our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, and yes, beyond. So in today's episode is about the beginning. It's about starting new. It's about my purpose so that I can bring things to light and I can talk to you all about why I'm here, why this podcast exists, and why I believe God led me to speak, not from perfection, because let me tell you something, I am full. I am way far from perfect, but from experience, from a place of honesty. So I want to start by sharing a little of my heart with you, and I want to keep it real. One thing about me, first of all, I'm a Virgo, and you know about Virgos, we keep it real. I want to be very, very transparent. I'm not going to give you a polished version, to say, oh, really, all that and this is how she is. No, not that I have it all together. And nor am I going to give you the version that we sometimes portray on social media. Yes, I said it. And y'all know what I'm talking about. Everything that we want to make things look perfect. Or sometimes we have the ones that just put too much of their business out. But I want to keep it real about what it is that I want to bring to the table with no phoniness, no fakeness. First of all, but I want to be the real one. I want to start by saying, I'm a mother, and I'm a grandmother, I'm a bereaved mother, and I'm a single mother. I've also been divorced, married, divorced. I've had to start over. And I also have been a teenage mom. I have loved deeply in my life where I thought I was loving deeply. I've had to rebuild myself more than once. Like I mentioned, I've been a teenage mom. I've been a divorced mom. I've walked through grief that changed my life forever. And I've also rediscovered joy. Recently, I've rediscovered purpose. And I've rediscovered myself slowly, where with all the interruptions and lifing, I have been evolving gently with God guiding my steps. Understand that since we are all a work in progress, myself included, I have learned how to breathe after heartbreak. And it might sound like, what you mean breathe? It's in and out, inhale, exhale. It's a different kind of breath that you learn when you are in a transitioning phase in your life. I have relearned how to trust God when life didn't look like anything that I had prayed for. I have relearned how to rediscover myself. Not the version the world expected, but the woman I am. I have reinvented myself career-wise, educated myself more. I have rediscovered myself in fashion and, just different ways to make it appear like things were good. But at 59, I have lived through moments that tried to break me and moments that lifted me up again. So in all that, I've realized something. I am not the only one that is going through this. I am not the only person that can sit here and honestly say, girl, I'm good. My life is good. My job is great. My kids are great. And my husband's wonderful. And hey, maybe it is. Maybe it is. But there's still something that we always have room to work on. And women need a place where healing and honesty is welcome. A non-judgmental zone is what I want to have here. I'm not looking for perfection, not pressure, and not pretending. And like I said, I will keep it at 100. I want this to be a warm space where we can exhale together. So I created this podcast for women, queens like me, who have had to start over. And I'm gonna be very honest. My life has started out as a parent at a very young age, and I have had to start over many times, and have put myself in situations that I thought were good, but have realized, Lil, you got to back up. You need to step away. You need to sit back and exhale and know that it's okay. Learn from this, move on, and start over. You're not the first and you're not the last. I want to talk about healing old wounds. I have an elder deacon at my church, and she had spoken about this beautiful scripture, and I'll get into it as we go into further podcasts. And it was amazing how a person can live holding on to old wounds and wonder why life has never been good to them. And this is something that can be generational, and I want to address it, but in a way where it can be applicable to moving into a better direction and not always looking into the past. I also want to, speak about releasing people who have hurt us. Because in this day and age, we can't keep holding ourselves down and trying to fix what's broke and continue to, deal with these projects. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about. And, fixing everything and fixing everybody, and then not taking care of ourselves. We need to sometimes release people who hurt us, or we give them so much of us that it ends up hurting us. I also want to talk about how praying through moments that you have felt broken and have felt that God has not listened, and man, you keep telling me you're praying and I'm praying and nothing's happening. In my next episode, I'm going to keep it real, and I'm going to come raw with some stuff. And you talk about walking a path that was dark. I now understand that when things happen, it's not where you start, it's where you end. And that path that I was on, it wasn't that I didn't know what to do. It's just that I didn't have the resources, and I didn't have the extended family, I should say, of giving me that energy that I needed, and that those tools to try to come out and make it through this darkness that I was experiencing. I also want to address about rebuilding our identities in midlife. Queens, we are going through phases in this world today that I look back when my mother was my age, and I do remember that, where 59 was different then than it is now. I mean, there's so much more things about menopause, mental health, you know, when your kids go away and developing this empty nest syndrome, and even date night, it's just something where learning how to rebuild these things that we have actually experienced them a different way by our parents. And also, choosing softness. And I mean softness, like I've always been hard and tough, I'm a Virgo, and I've always, as a single mother, I had 5 daughters, and listen, I was the mother and the father. And, it's time to start living instead of surviving and develop that softness and grow gracefully, grow old gracefully from that. So in this podcast, it's for women who have had to be strong for too long and now want to be soft again. I hear girls and people on TikTok calling that, I'm in my soft era. We need to get in our soft era. This podcast is for women who think that their story is messy. Listen, we all have a story, and there's a mess in that story. But don't realize that our stories is our ministry. It's also for women who feel unseen, unheard, or forgotten. But what I want y'all to know about this space and this podcast is that that's not going to happen here, not in this space. Here, you are reminded that you are becoming, because we're all on our way in becoming who we should be. And most of all, we're not going to do it alone. So, in every episode, I'm not going to come from a place of statistics and, what I've heard or what I've seen. No, I'm going to come up with real conversations. One of my goals is to begin having guests with me and talking to another person who, hey, we can understand, we come from the same place or been there, done that. No mask and no pretending. I also want to talk a little bit about faith, but I want to do it without any force. I'm not here to be that person to convince you that this is the reason why I am where I am because of God and my faith and all that. No, although it's true, I do want you to know the gentle truth and God's voice woven through real life. And even if you're not spiritual, I want you to know that there is always going to be something for everyone in all of my episodes. Talking about beauty and softness, because one thing we fail to realize as women, what I should say is that we forget, because we get so involved in when we go through the empty nest. And during that empty nest, as your kids are growing up, we're changing. We're going through perimenopause, and then we're going through menopause. And then we start losing ourselves. We start forgetting about our femininity, and we forget about staying elegant. But you have to understand that femininity, elegance, and healing can all coexist. And also, I want to bring to the table about practical wisdom. I want to be able to talk to you about like tools to give you that can help you, that have helped me in using your wisdom differently or just looking at things differently. But most of all, I want you to know that this is a safe space. That when I say safe, it's not that, it's like somewhere where no one else can listen or, nothing's going to get told, because you're not going to be talking here with me. I'm talking to you. But I want you to know that when I say it's a safe space, there's no judgment. Because life is already heavy enough and we don't need any more weight. So when I say it's a safe space, it's where this is for everybody. My intentions are to mix this podcast with faith, healing, femininity, self-worth, some style, and womanhood in a way that reminds you you are still becoming the woman God designed. So, real quick, and this isn't anything corny. This is things that I've learned, I've seen, and I've actually have done. I want you to pause with me for a moment and just put your hand on your heart and close your eyes if you can and breathe. Inhale what you need and exhale what you need to release. And you know what? This is what we're going to do when we start talking. Then ask yourself, who am I becoming? What is God trying to grow in me? And what part of my story is ready for healing? I want you to let that question settle in your spirit today. And I want you to be able to get ready for when you come back and listen to my next episode. Remember what we talked about the breathing. So, my queens, now that I've told you a little bit of why I started this podcast and a little bit about myself, I want to thank you for spending these moments with me. This episode is the beginning of something beautiful for me, for you, and for every woman who needs a soft landing place for her heart. So if this episode touched your spirit, share it with another woman who needs encouragement. And if you feel that this girl got something, I want you to tune back in, and I want you to listen for episode 2. And next week, in episode 2, I want to talk about healing after loss, learning to breathe again. And I want to have a deeper conversation about grief, healing, faith, and rebuilding your emotional lungs. So until then, I want you to be gentle with yourself. Remember, you are still growing, you're healing, and you're never alone.